Look, I've played my fair share of bad games, and I've seen many franchises die as time goes on due to repetitiveness, incompetence by the developers, saturation of microtransactions, unnecessary political commentary inserted into the game, and blatant miscommunication between the companies pushing these games and the communities out there who support these games. But of all the silly mistakes I've seen companies make, even outside of anime games, which already have a bad rep for being B-class, lazy, and limited compared to their Western competition, this game has got to top them all. The game Jump Force was marketed at E3 2018 as Shonen Jump's huge crossover sequel to the surprisingly popular J-Star's Victory Versus. Jump Force to them was essentially their Avengers, but in video game form, and they were hoping to capitalize on the success of the Western fans who had imported J-Star's Victory Versus all the way back when it released, before it even had an English translation, meaning majority of the people who bought this game didn't even understand what the actual game said on the menus because it was all in Japanese. And the success of Marvel in the MCU in the past 10 years obviously had an influence on this game too, as the entire story mode of the game, which is a f***ing meme as it is a direct reflection of the Avengers. It's literally shonen main characters as superheroes banding together to save the world. A game featuring all of our favorite characters like Goku, Naruto, Luffy, Ichigo, and many more. Straight out of the gate, I was hooked on the idea, just like millions of others, as I was one of the many Westerners who actually ordered J-Stars back when it released, and I genuinely enjoyed that game even though the controls were pretty damn stiff and I was only getting matched up against Japanese players who played the game as if their family's honor depended on winning the actual matches. Jump Force to me as an anime fan was exactly what I wanted. A next-gen, fully developed, promising crossover game that was even being pushed by Xbox, a console and company which is primarily known as being a Western console, yet even they were in on getting a slice of that pie and advertising this massive crossover Japanese anime manga fighting game. You know what I'm saying? There was so much potential here. And guess what? They even had Bleach characters from the War arc, which as of today is still yet to have an anime adaptation. The game had fun written all over it, a lot of promise, and could have easily started the engine of production which would lead to companies producing many more future crossover fighting games involving the shonen powerhouses we all know and love. Sure, these games won't be the next Tekken, Mortal Kombat, or Smash by any means, but this could be a successful concurrent thing which we could see go on for many years. And they've already talked about doing it actually. They had a Q&A after Jump Force release where they were curious what people thought about the game, and they already implied that they're considering making a second Jump Force game, meaning the game succeeded way beyond what they actually expected. And although the game did sell a lot more than even they expected, it was a massive letdown upon release. Straight away when it released, we had many issues. The roster was half the size of what it should have been. The online mode was a complete mess. The actual mechanics of the game were arguably a downgrade compared to J-Star's Victory Versus, which is insane to say considering how poorly made that game actually was. You know, although I enjoyed it, that was a very badly programmed game, oh my lord. The story mode was an absolute joke, something which a lot of people were excited for, especially after they seen that Light Yagami would be in the actual story and a huge part of the game itself. Now, usually I'd say that buying an anime fighting game for anything other than the actual act of fighting in the game itself, because that's what you should be expecting when you buy these games, not a super in-depth AAA story mode, but I would say that's usually pretty stupid to expect a good story mode. For most cases, it's very rare that we'd get a very in-depth story mode in an anime game. It's extremely rare actually. But Jump Force's story mode was leaps and bounds worse than just, quote, bad by any means. It was, yeah, just take a look at this.
Yeah, that cutscene about sums it up right there. Frieza fucking T-posing out of there, basically.
if you just go onto Twitter and scroll down any post that Bandai Namco puts out about Jump Force, they are constantly being clowned on and bullied 24/7. And you know what? I actually don't feel bad for them at all whatsoever. Not only am I kissing any potential partnership or sponsor with them goodbye by making this video, but I gotta be honest, I would not want to work with a company like them anyway. They let down so many goddamn people when they hyped the hell out of this game, acted like it was going to be the biggest thing they've ever released, showcased all these special editions of the game. They talked about all of the benefits which would come with buying these said special editions of the game, slowly hyped up the release of our favorite characters being added into the game as the weeks and months went by leading up to the game's release, only for the game to turn out to be absolute arse. I mean, just think about this for a second. What fighting game, a game where all you do is what's in the name, you know, fight, how the hell did it not have a rematch button in the game from release? And these morons have the audacity to release a trailer on their Twitter with hype-ass music, epic text on the screen, exploding on the screen, and appearing really quick, flashing and so on, essentially sucking their own over them adding a feature that should have been in the game since day one, the most basic feature of any fighting game since cavemen were fighting each other in caves on their Nintendo sticks, which that itself even had a rematch button when they hit each other over the head with said stick. Not having a rematch button in a fighting game is like pizza without cheese. It's like a car without fucking wheels. It's like Popeye without his damn spinach. I seen ridiculous ass comments on Twitter saying things like, not their fault you paid $100 to play a game of unknown quality a few days before it released. What kind of cuckish mentality and logic is that? A lot of the things that people are complaining about are things that they actually promised before the game's release. If anything, that's actually false advertisement. Things like, oh, if you buy the special edition, you will get this many DLC characters and maps and all these different benefits and have a really fun time. Oh, if you buy the special edition, you actually get the characters early. And what happens? Oh, they're delaying characters like Toshiro, who was supposed to be in this month's DLC. Not only have they been completely late when it comes to the schedule of releasing these DLC characters, but they are actually re-releasing characters from the story mode, which should have been playable since day one. I mean, I seen another comment saying this, it probably got delayed because they were adding the rematch feature. Bandai, thank you for hearing the community's concerns and adding the rematch feature. They could wait for the next character because it was more important. So, not only did we wait over 6 months for the rematch button, which should have been in the release, but within that time span of them apparently working on the rematch button over the new DLCs, they had the time to put those story mode villains in the game, like as playable characters in the online. I really don't understand what the going on. Why did we even pay this money for all these special editions if we were going to get let down that bad? This game has been an actual full-blown joke. Not only do we have all the issues I listed before, but ranked mode when the game actually released, I think it's basically pretty much still the same even when I get on and play it now, but it was virtually unplayable because it just didn't want to work. It was like messing with one of those fortune telling balls and it would just tell you to go f yourself and not want to work. The actual mechanics of the game are so piss poor that you honestly have to ask yourself, did the developers even play this game in the studio? Because not only is it incredibly just unfun, but those who are actually, quote, good at the game aren't even skillful players by any stretch of the imagination. They've just mastered every conceivable way to abuse the game's clunky ass mechanics. The developers must have been smoking some senzu beans in the damn office, because them acting like this was a finished game or even playable is a sure sign that they were high on something. I know people usually don't have high hopes for 3D fighters, but this is just blatantly bottom of the barrel bad. Just take a note from Raging Blast and the Ultimate Ninja Storm series. It can be done right, and it's a shame that CC2 were busy with that new Dragon Ball Z Kakarot game, because I would have loved to see what they would have had in mind when it comes to a crossover game like this. At least one thing that would have been guaranteed is that it would have been a fun game. Half the time when I get on Jump Force, I literally just run around in the hub world for 10 minutes, and then I end up just turning the game off out of sheer boredom. Like, I don't even, like, feel that sort of magnetic pull to want to fight again in the game like I do when I play Tekken or the Naruto Storm series. You know, those games, you have, like, this addiction to want to play the next match and keep fighting people, and it feels super competitive. This game, I play 2 matches against these sweaty-ass motherfuckers, and I'm like, I just don't like this game. Like, and it's not even like I'm losing the matches, like, it's just not fun. To add fuel to the fire, these scheming assholes knew that they could play us like a fiddle so badly that they purposely left Madara Uchiha out of the release version of the game and added him as DLC, because they know that Naruto fans who are incredibly loyal to their series would pay more money and any amount possible, right? I'm sure there's people out there that are Naruto fans that would pay $1,000 just to play as Madara in Jump Force. They knew that they could play those Naruto fans like a fiddle once again, that they would be so desperate that they would pay, no matter what it is, just to play as Madara. Once again, they would do that just to play as Madara, and they kept him as DLC. Like, let's be honest, who in their right mind would honestly be excited for Kaguya over Madara? The same can also be said about Grimmjow, because I was really not excited for Renji in the release version. I don't actually dislike Renji, but he's not the kind of character that when I see it, I'm like, oh damn, that's gonna make me buy the game. But if they had have advertised Grimmjow in the release of the game, that is a character who just him alone would get me to buy the game, and they kept him as DLC too. To keep a long story short, this game has been abysmal and a direct example of how lazy these anime developers can be, because they know they can slap any of our favorite characters on a game cover, spend around a year max working on said game, it out, and we'll eat that up like starving kids in a third world country. It's absolutely pathetic to see a game filled with so much potential be out and forgotten by the developers and publishers in a matter of months. And to all of you who purchased the most expensive edition of Jump Force to hopefully play as your favorite characters which were being added as DLC, well, tough luck, because the developers are too busy around doing whatever the hell they like to actually have them completed and playable in time for a schedule which they have completely messed up. The schedule of these DLC characters is almost worse than my own upload schedule. Bondi and Spike Chunsoft should be ashamed of themselves for what they did with Jump Force and how badly this reflects on the bad reputation that anime games already have. And also, you guys should definitely go follow me on Twitch. It's in the description below. I'm going to start streaming a bit more on there, so yeah, I'd appreciate that.